Welcome back, everyone. So, last video, as you guys know, we looked at the pulse oximeter, which is a cool device that looks at oxygen saturation in the blood. So for today, we're going to stay in the red, stay in the blood, but we're going to look at a different device that looks at a different important quantity in the blood: sugar. Now, when you say sugar, that's a pretty broad term. There's a lot of different types of sugar. You got lactose, fructose, galactose, and glucose. That's just a few of the many different types of sugars you got in the body. However, the device in this video only looks at glucose, so we're only going to be focusing on glucose for this video. And that's because glucose is the easiest out of all the sugars for cells to take up in the body, and the easiest one to convert into ATP, or in other words, energy. Think about it as glucose being the favorite one. When you eat food, especially carbs like pasta, potatoes, apples, and chug jugs, your stomach and small intestines use enzymes to break down the food into smaller parts, until these parts get so small where they are broken down into glucose units. Once you break down the food into glucose, it is dissolved into the blood plasma and circulated throughout the body using the circulatory system. And when you leave glucose like this out in the open bloodstream, you can strike with the glucometer and get that much needed blood sugar value.
3, 2, 1.
Hit it. So let's take a look at this kit up close in detail. There's actually a lot of pieces, as you can see here, a ton of different stuff, including this as well. But let's look at each piece little by little. Let's start with this pen-looking piece, the lancing device. So this is the lancing device, and it is used with these Fruit Loops looking things called lancets. These two pieces used together will be used to poke a hole in your skin to draw blood, and this blood sample is what you will be looking for the blood sugar in. So in order to assemble these two things together, it's kind of like a game of Bop It. You gotta twist it, and pull it, twist it, pull it, and you just push it, and then twist it, pull it, and then ultimately bop it. But that's the lancing device and lancet used together. So that's one part of this big system of things. Next up, we got this PSP looking thing called the glucometer. Meaning it measures glucose levels in the blood. And this can right here has a whole bunch of strips. I'm just call them glucose strips. Right here. That don't look like too much, but the glucose strip is the piece that brings this entire apparatus. So these two pieces and then these two pieces, it brings it all together. It's got two ends, as you can see. It's got the end where the blood is dropped onto and then drawn into the glucometer, and it has this scary circuit end. Just kidding. So not only are these strips responsible for bringing the blood drawn from the lancing device to the glucometer, but the circuitry right here in this tiny portion of the strip actually creates an electrical signal that's processed and displayed on the screen of the glucometer. We'll go over the relationship between these two a bit more in detail, but despite how complicated these two pieces are, it works just like a PSP and how they fit together. You just stick the strip in like how you would stick the game into a slot of a PSP, and it just fits. Psych! You really thought it'd be that simple? The glucometer strips and the glucometer are soulmates. You need to make sure the strips and the glucometers are from the same company, because each company designs its own unique circuitry on the strip, meaning that a glucometer is specifically designed to interact and process signals from strips from the same company and no other company. So inserting chips, say this one, like this one from CVS, into a glucometer from Contour One is like cheating on the strips from Contour 1. It just won't work, meaning the glucometer will not turn on to insert the strip in, because it's not receiving the correct signal to turn on. Unfortunately, most glucometer strips you have to buy separately, and they're not included in most glucometer kits. How convenient is that, right? Instead, you can just buy a pack of dozens of them separately for an additional cost. Man, these companies love making you pay for extra stuff. Believe me, I tried using a cheaper brand like this with my glucometer that was available at the store, hoping it would work to save a couple bucks, but you know, nope, it wouldn't turn on. So I had to take the walk of shame and go back and get the correct brand for a little bag, you know. Well, you live and you learn. But instead, you gotta try the strips from the correct company, which will look a bit different, because every strip looks a bit different. Like comparing the two strips, you can see that you don't have to be a crazy electrical engineer or electrician or anything to see that the circuitry on these two pieces is different, right? So this time when you insert the correct piece into the glucometer, what do you know? It'll turn on. And now you're all ready to get your sample. Now that my disclaimer and rant is over, the lancing device and the glucometer devices are fully set up. Let's get ready to stab some stuff. Warning, there is 1 drop of blood in the next section of the video. Viewer discretion is advised, not for the faint of heart. Okay, now that we're ready to actually draw the blood, you need to get the lancing device ready to poke your finger. So, pretty simple. All you have to do is pull this back. There's a little spring in here, so it's spring loaded. So when I press this gray button that just raised a little bit, it'll shoot the needle into the finger just enough that a small drop of blood will be drawn. And before I actually do this, you can adjust how far you want the needle to go using these numbers, 1 being the most shallow and 5 being a mortal wound. Just kidding. All 5 of these are surface level, and the higher numbers are just used for more rough surfaces or just to poke a little bit deeper. So now, when ready, you can press your finger pad a little bit to get the blood running, and push the gray button. I did that wrong. Dang it. Okay. So now that you're ready, press on your finger pad to get the blood running a little bit in there, and you can press the button. Ooh. And there's your droplet of blood. You can squeeze it a little bit and drop it on to the pad. That was not neat. Okay, so I think I figured out why this thing wasn't working after reading the very short manual for this thing. You can see here you need to hit OK for 3 seconds to initiate the self-test. And then we got to set the time and the date. Now let's try this again. I'm turning on the glucometer, and as you can see, the first thing that pops up is that 70 to 180. That means that's the range of concentration of sugar in the blood that is okay. And you can change this in the settings, but I'm just going to keep it as is because it was preset to this, and they suggested this range on the manual, so can't go against the manual, right? And it's in units of milligram per deciliter, which is a pretty strange unit, but it's used for a lot of concentrations. Now I'm going to go ahead and set the time and date settings. First, you got to set the time. It's this time, 5:24, and the date is January 12th, 2024. So I'm just going to leave it as is, and now we should be good to run it back. Now when I turn it on, as you can see, it's prompting to take the blood. As you can see in the far left, the droplet is there's an icon for the droplet to hit the strip, so I think we're all good to go. So let's load up the lancing device, pop it, push it, pull it, twist it, whatever, and stab yourself with it. There's the blood. And now, try to push that blood onto the strip. Give it a couple seconds. Give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we got it. And the reading is 111 milligrams per deciliter. We get that nice little check mark. We're in the range of 70 to 180, so my blood sugar is good. So that means that we successfully read the blood sugar using this glucometer kit. And yeah, it's a good kit and we're in good shape, so win-win. There's a couple of cool bonus features that this device has hidden in it, so we can go over those too because they're kind of sick. Basically, if you go here to settings and keep going, hitting OK till you get to a different screen, you can get the meal marker mode, where if you turn this thing on, see these 3 icons here on the right side, you can choose which mode you want of these. One of these is fasting, where this is the non-apple, where you haven't eaten for a while, so maybe just when you wake up before breakfast, it'll set a lower range for your blood sugar so that the device can recognize that as you haven't eaten in a while, so the accepted ranges for what's healthy is lower. You have right before you're eating, so it's a higher range than the fasting range, but it's still lower. And then you have an after meal where the range is set higher because you've eaten a lot and your blood sugar will rise, so it knows to adjust based on the time you've eaten. The device will change the range of what is a healthy range that you should aim for your blood sugar to be in. So you can hit OK and set this thing to that. So once you go back to the main menu, you can change it. So then, ta-da! So that's a cool little feature. And then, second, you can go to Bluetooth. This thing got a Bluetooth on it. You need to pair up your phone first, download the Control One app, and then connect your phone to Bluetooth. And then using that, you can keep track of your data, get some more sophisticated analysis on it. I don't think it gives aux, or you can't play music off it, but you can get a lot more data and use the app using Bluetooth, so that's a cool little feature. And you want to try to squeeze this drop of blood onto the not scary receiving end of the strip. The strip has an absorbent material that'll soak up the blood like a sponge and bring it to the scary circuit side eventually. But here's the mind-blowing part: how the strip creates an electric signal from the glucose in the blood sample. So when the blood's flowing from one end to the other, it'll interact with various reagents called mediators, as well as enzymes on the test strip, such as glucose oxidase or glucose dehydrogenase. And these enzymes will create chemical reactions between the blood and the other reagents. As a result, the glucose in the blood will undergo a series of chemical reactions as it's passed down from mediator to mediator down the strip. And regardless of what chemical reaction occurs, it'll differ because each company has its own secret formula of reagents and enzymes. One thing is certain: the electrons will be transferred between substances, because this is what happens in many chemical reactions, more specifically redox reactions, but let's not go into any more chemistry than we need to. Since several chemical reactions will occur, many electrons will be transferred, which creates an electric current, aka the electrical signal generated from the strip, which is what we mentioned before. The strip then feeds this electric current into the glucometer, which is able to calculate how much glucose was required to generate the current fed to it. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is your blood sugar value. Now, this value is very nice to know. It's just a nice to know value for people without diabetes, but for people with diabetes, this is a crucial quantity to know. Diabetes inhibits the body's ability to produce or respond to a certain hormone called insulin, which helps cells to be able to take in glucose from the blood. So since it's inhibited, the glucose is left hanging around the blood because the cells won't take it up, which leads to abnormally high sugar values in the blood. And if this condition is left untreated, it can lead to all sorts of problems like heart disease, kidney damage, nerve damage, and a whole lot of other issues. Therefore, the glucometer kit is a crucial tool that people with diabetes use to regularly monitor their blood sugar values to make sure they aren't going too high or too low. And if it is, this tool is used to be able to identify it quickly so they can act quickly enough to balance it out. I do not have diabetes.